Hi, I'm Paris, and today I'm talking about the third pillar of my weight loss over the past year. It's fiber. You can get it in a jar. You can also get it in lots of plant-based foods. When I first started out, this is where my fiber was coming from, but as I learned more about the importance of it, and I found lots of delicious foods that are full of it, I switched over to getting almost all my fiber just from my daily diet. Now, if you're thinking the fiber works for weight loss to sort of flush everything out that might be stuck along your digestive tract, no, it's not that. And you might be thinking, well, it improves your regularity, so in that way you can lose weight, and that is a nice add-on bonus that it does, but that's not the weight loss cause. I'm feeding my microbiome, a collection of bacteria and organisms that lives mostly at the far end of my digestive tract. Only weighs a few pounds, but it numbers more than 10 trillion organisms, so it actually outnumbers the number of cells in my body. And why do I want to worry about feeding a collection of bacteria that lives mostly in my colon? Well, whether you intentionally feed it or not, there will be bacteria there. And depending on the types of bacteria you have populating your microbiome, you can have different health effects from it as well as different mental health effects. So if you take care of your microbiome, it will take care of you. I do want to mention here that I'm not a doctor. In this series of videos, I'm relating what worked for me to lose over 50 pounds during the course of the past year. You should check with your doctor before making any diet or lifestyle changes. And as I mentioned in the first video in this series, I will link down below this video to all the things I talk about here. So all of these foods which are part of my daily diet, as well as the book that was really so informational and really changed my mind in understanding how the microbiome works. It's called 10% Human by Alana Collin. She had her own experiences with microbiome issues which led her to research the subject, and what she finds out and shares in the book is really amazing. I'll link to this book down below the video as well. The reason the book is called 10% Human is because if you add up the total number of cells that comprise me, only about 10% of them are mine. If you look at the DNA, you'll find my DNA. The other 90% are other organisms, some of which live in the gut, some of which live on your skin microbiome, in your nose, in your ear. Pretty much everywhere there's you, there's other organisms as well. We're sort of like a communal zoo or an ecosystem, and I like to imagine I'm the zookeeper and in charge of this whole collection, but the more they're finding out about your microbiome, especially your gut microbiome, which bacteria you have in there, how well you feed it, and then the byproducts that it produces and the effect on your body and your brain, a contributing cause to anxiety, depression, OCD, other mental health issues may be related to what's going on with your microbiome. So how much I am the zookeeper as opposed to how much I just think I'm the zookeeper has yet to be seen. Our ancient ancestors are thought to have eaten a lot of fiber every day, and so they had bacterial colonies that are especially good at digesting fiber. They get their own nutrition out of that, and the byproducts that they produce, it helps with intestinal security. It helps to keep the things inside the intestine that are supposed to stay in there and pass further on through, and it allows the things to pass through that should. That mucus lining of your intestine that does that important job is supported by byproducts of the bacteria that are in there breaking down the components of your food. So if you're feeding the right bacteria well, then you have a good lining and you don't have stuff leaking through your intestine, which can cause a whole variety of health issues. Now you can have different types of bacteria in your microbiome. Some seem to be better for health than others. You can also have sort of a wasteland in there, especially after you've had antibiotics. Over the past few years, your doctor may have started suggesting to you that when you're given a course of antibiotics, to take probiotics a certain number of hours after you take each antibiotic, and for a while after you finish the antibiotic regimen to try to rebuild those bacterial colonies. But your average probiotic, and I have taken them in the past, I don't take any right now, they're like 15 or 20 different bacteria. What you should have in your microbiome is a collection of about 4,000 different bacteria. So repopulating your microbiome with some good strains of bacteria may be helpful, but better is to throw in the diverse combination of bacteria that you get from eating these types of foods, particularly if you want to repopulate your microbiome. I've read fermented foods is the way to go. This is kimchi. It is fermented and spiced cabbage, traditional Korean food, and it is usually pretty spicy. And when I feel like I want to top off my microbial diversity, I buy a jar. This one is from Whole Foods, goes for about $6. You can find out more about it at the link down below this video. Just 170 calories for the whole jar, all healthful ingredients, a little high on the salt, but that's how they make it. You'll find that often in fermented foods like pickles. A popular fermented German food that's also great for topping up your microbial diversity is sauerkraut. So why do you want to have such a wide variety of bacteria living inside you? Well, different strains of bacteria do different things for you, or to you if you get some bad strains in there. And when you take antibiotics or you get sick, if you have diarrhea, you can flush out an awful lot of the bacteria. And depending on which antibiotic you take, which strain of the flu you come down with, different strains of bacteria are better able to withstand that. So you're starting out with a better base load of backup bacteria that can start multiplying and bring you back to health more quickly. You don't want to have all your bacterial eggs in one basket. And they've bred strains of mice to not have any bacteria in their intestine, and things do not work well with those mice. They're prone to all kinds of illnesses. And in other experiments in mice, they'll grow some mice to be obese, and they'll take a stool sample from those mice, a sample of the microbiome, and they'll put that into the thin mice, and the thin mice tend to gain weight because they've got that collection of organisms inside of them now that tends to help produce an obese mouse. Even in a thin mouse, it will tend to produce the same thing. It affects the digestion, the health, and the weight of the mouse. Now, after hearing that, if you're thinking, well, I just need a stool sample from a thin person, if I have that introduced to my microbiome, then their healthful bacteria will convert me into a thin person. Not quite that easy, because yes, you can, and people do, that kind of transfer, and you can take those bacteria and get them started, but it's sort of like if you have a fish tank and you decide you want to breed fish. So you go out and you buy 20 fish and you dump them in the tank and they're swimming around, but you don't feed them, you're not going to have fish for very long. So if you put the healthful bacteria inside of you, but you aren't eating the fiber and the foods that that strain of bacteria needs to reproduce and to do well and to stake out its own space in your intestine and your colon, they're just going to die off. Just as if you start out with an unhealthy combination of bacterial strains from years of eating junk food and eating unhealthily, and you change over to eating fiber and more healthful foods, doesn't automatically mean you're going to improve the types of bacteria that are in your gut if you're not introducing some in there that can do well. So you need to do both things. You need a hospitable environment for the bacteria to grow, so you eat the right foods. You may have to make lifestyle changes, constant stress, acid stomach, it changes things in there in negative ways. But you also need to introduce the bacteria that can take advantage of that hospitable environment to grow and colonize. So you need what are called prebiotics to create that hospitable environment, for example, foods high in fiber. And then you need probiotics, which are the healthful bacterial organisms that you want to introduce to eat that fiber. Kimchi sandwich, anyone? No, you don't have to eat them at the same time. So long as you're eating healthful, fiber-rich foods throughout the day, whenever you introduce the bacteria, they'll be happy to arrive and they'll start growing. Before I was ready to make the significant diet changes to improve my health, this is what I tried, and I still take a little bit. I still have a little left. I put it in tea now, but this was my main source of fiber. Though the ideal fiber combination comes from eating a variety of healthful foods, at least this is a start. This is called prebiotic. It's a blend of fibers from healthful foods. If you just eat the food, you get the fibers, but if you're not ready to do that yet, you can start with this. The company Hyperbiotics also makes a variety of probiotics in pill form that you can take, and I used to take those as well. Taking powdered prebiotics and probiotics in pill form, I don't think it's going to get you to your final destination, but for the cost of those packaged prebiotics and expensive probiotic tablets, you could spend the money on the foods. For example, high fiber foods, things I eat every day. One is sweet potatoes. These are from Trader Joe's. I like them, rather than picking out the large sweet potatoes, I like to have them as a finger food. So these are, once they're cooked, they shrink down a little and you can just eat them as a snack. Just one of these small sweet potatoes, about 4 grams of fiber. And what you're looking at is to kind of go beyond the RDA for fiber, which is I think around 25 grams a day for women, about 35 or so for men. I generally get between 80 and 100 grams of fiber. And from what I've read, our ancestors got that or more eating a plant-based diet. Bread is great. I thought I was going to have to give it up, but then I found Ezekiel bread. This is sprouted grains, so it's more easily digested. It's higher in protein and fiber than most breads you'll find. It's made from a combination of wheat, barley, beans, lentils, a couple other grains. It doesn't have any preservatives, so often you'll find this in the freezer or refrigerator section at your supermarket. It is on the pricier side, about $5 a loaf. They do make a cinnamon raisin version that is so good and doesn't even need any jam or jelly, and each slice has about 3 grams of fiber. And black beans. Beans are sort of notorious for being high in fiber, or at least the side effect of that, which especially when you're starting out increasing the amount of fiber in your diet, you will be quite a bit gassier. And I won't lie, when you're eating 100 grams a day of fiber, you stay kind of gassy. The only good thing about it is your gassiness smells better than gassiness from junk and processed food. I know that may be a weird observation, but it's very true. 7 grams of fiber in just 1/4 of this can. This is one of the Dr. McDougall line of soups. I really like them. This isn't my favorite. I prefer the lentil or bean soups more. This one's just a little plain, but doesn't have preservatives, doesn't have added sugar. And if you eat all 18 ounces of soup in the package, which I do as part of my lunch, that'll get you 6 grams of fiber. A lunch I like will be taking the Ezekiel bread and toasting up 2 slices of it, taking about 1/4 of this can and spreading that on each piece of toast, and heating up a pack of this soup and dipping my bean toast into it. I really like to eat it that way. So all together with that lunch, I'm getting about 20 grams of fiber. That's about as much as a lot of Americans get in one day. And if I want something sweet after my toast and soup, I might have half this pack of blackberries. That's about 5 grams of fiber. Or I might have a couple dates, 4 grams of fiber there. Just about everything plant-based is going to have fiber. It's the fiber that holds the plants together. The one place you won't find fiber is in meat. Now that wasn't lost for me, since a year ago with some health issues I was having, I needed to go on a vegan diet and I needed to cut out oils, which pretty much left me with carbohydrates, but in that time I've managed to lose over 55 pounds. So eating a healthful diet should provide you with lots of fiber, which should provide your microbiome with lots of fiber. When you're eating, you think about what you want, but if you could just spare a little bit of thinking to how this will affect your microbiome, it will repay you for taking good care of it. So we may go from a nation of overweight and obese people to a nation of gassy people, but nobody ever said life was going to be easy. See you on the next video.